All right, welcome into Dog Central on a Tuesday afternoon. I am Graham Coffey. I'm joined as always by Josh Hancher, and we have special guests today. Former UGA great, former NFL offensive lineman, Mr. George Foster, here to talk to us a little bit about UGA's offensive line struggles of late. George, how are you doing today?
Doing all right, man. How y'all doing?
Good, good. We can hear you perfectly loud and clear as well.
We're
So
getting it right.
excited to have you here. Yeah. So, George, there's been a lot of talk since the end of the Missouri game about Georgia's offensive line and specifically about UGA switching to more gap scheme in the second half after having a lot of zone plays early in the game that weren't successful. For kind of the normal average football fan, how would you describe the difference between gap and zone?
I'm trying to make this simple. It is it's in the name. You're stepping to a zone and you're blocking and you're trying to stay square to give the running back behind you where the creases are, and you're trying to take your guy displace, and the backside is trying to cut off the back. We're basically a crease in the defense. You know what I mean? If that makes sense, you're trying to
Right.
by taking your guy, displacing them sideways, and it like if the great teams, it looks like a chorus line, like that everyone's moving is beautiful. Trust me, if you love football, it's one of the prettiest on a football field. It's uniform. It's effective. Teams that do it well just chew people up. Gap scheme, and we'll get to the personnel it takes to do both.
Right.
I'm sure. Gap scheme is you taking those guys that are in the gaps, you're trying to displace them down blocks, uh, or double team block. You're trying to get a guy. You're trying to get a guy and move him from where he create creases that way, and it's more downhill. You know what I mean? So
So
you're not moving the defense sideways. You're trying to heel attack, and you're displacing guys, you know, with power. You know, and that requires a different type of guy too.
so like I I guess if you're at home and you're watching an offensive line play football and we see guys pulling from one side of the formation to the other, that's gap scheme, correct?
More than likely, more,
Okay.
more than
And
likely,
then
more than likely, that's a gap.
I guess the question would be if I mean you can have gap scheme plays where guys aren't pulling. How would one
Yes.
kind of recognize that on a on a simple
Um,
level, or is there not a simple way to recognize that?
the steps that the guys are taking, they're not they're not. You know what I mean? Zone scheme, you got to run. You got to be able to run front side and the back side. Backside of the backside of zone scheme is the most. I think it's a play came up that I saw people talking about, and this is of the ball with us with Jalen Carter. Some people thought
Mm-hmm.
it was a dirty play. I'm assuming that Missouri is a zone team as well, and that guy was trying to cut Jalen off, but he didn't get there, blocking the side of Jalen.
Right.
When his aim is trying to get half of Jalen, so he's got to get on his horse and run. And you don't cut guys with you probably end up cutting the guy off 5 yards from where you took off from. It's a it doesn't happen immediately. And with sideways, and running, hopefully not getting pushed back. That's, guys coming off the ball, coming downhill, double locking down on people. That's your gap stuff.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna go ahead, Josh.
I was going to ask. So is one of the elements of these two schemes, is it that in a gap the running back is more likely to hit one spot, and whereas a zone is going to be the running back's going to have maybe, you often hear about zone reads and stuff. So is a gap design more than likely to attack one spot on the line and have that running back run at that spot, or is that overly simplistic?
It's not quite overly simplistic. You're pretty much right. It doesn't work out that way all the time. Sometimes,
yeah,
because defenses move. So if you're just say you got a 3 technique, guard and the tackle are blocking that guy up to the backside linebacker, the ball might hit in the B gap. You know what I mean? If they say that 3 technique stays outside, you can't displace them. That ball might hit right there inside. I've seen power hit straight down the middle. Sometimes it bounces out. It just depends on what the defense does. You just can't be a static lineman. You have to be able to adjust on the move. Linebackers plug. Linebackers run up out of there. Linebackers, dogs and things, and you just have to be prepared for it as a lineman.
So, if you're an offensive coordinator and you have both schemes in your playbook, when and why would you pick one versus the other?
I would pick one. Personnel would determine it, and one would be my identity with sprinkles of the other. So
gotcha.
In Denver, where I played at,
Right.
First of all, dimension-wise, I was the anomaly. Everybody was small, but I could run. You know what I mean? You have to be able to run in the zone scheme. So, but typically guys in the zone scheme don't look. They move like I used to couldn't move. I'm slow now, but I all that. You know what I mean? So, and just looking at Georgia, we got a bunch of big hogs and move furniture. I would be a gap scheme team because we don't have. I'm not saying they're big and slow. We don't. You have to in Detroit. When I went to Detroit, when I got traded to Detroit, we tried the zone scheme. It didn't work out. We had me. I was 330 some pounds. He was a 350 pound guard. We had Damian Woody, another big. It just didn't work. It doesn't work out. You all 5 have to be able to be in the zone scheme. Not 4. If you got guys on the backside that can't haul ass and cut off, then it won't work. It'll always, the plays will always fall apart. And so I don't think, they've gotten away with it over the years, because they've been live for pretty much the Kirby, era. You know what I mean? Gotten away with it. If you got the guys, if you have the athletes, the fleet-footed athletes on the offensive scheme person, but if you got big, strong guys that can't run the greatest, then you might want to be, and zone takes a lot of repetition too. I don't know what they have and all of that. It takes a lot of repetition. I could show you some film from my Denver days. Earlier, it looks like a chorus line. Everyone moving at the same time, it's like repeat, and we're out of there. Sometimes moving before the defense can get that. That's how you gain yards in the zone scheme, along with the back off and the back just knowing when to get downhill. It's not a cutback like some people on scheme is a cutback run. It looks like a cutback because the line has moved. They would tell like a wide zone. Just say we're doing a strong side. The running back's downhill cut would be where it used to be. But by the time he makes that cut, he's making it where the back side it looks like a cutback, but it's not. It's still front side. And actually get back there, but he's not looking to cut it back.
Yeah, I mean, Missouri on Saturday night, there was a lot of talk on the broadcast about the stretch plays that they were running, and they kept kind of basically moving from their right to the left and moving Georgia's defensive line, laterally towards the sideline. And by the time the running back hit that hole, the right tackle for Missouri would be where the center was lined up at the start of the play. So I get what you're saying. It looks like a cutback, but it's really, not. We're going to throw a couple plays up here real quick. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying with the young D lineman Georgia has, where they probably, they weren't ready for that. You know what I mean? It takes some, I guess some repetitive stuff. You got to play with your hands and your feet, because if you get chopped down in the zone team, you're dead.
Gotcha.
Graham, you want to start with the zones or the gaps that we've got labeled here?
Here, throw this. Let's just throw this up and see. Here, this clip too, Josh. If you can make this big on the screen. So, George, can you tell us? This play is going to be blown up, obviously, right here at the start. But is this designed to be a gap scheme or a zone scheme blocking pattern?
Go
if
back.
You can tell it all.
I'll play it full speed and then I'll replay it there.
Go back again one more time. Oh, it's going to that was fast forward. I can't.
There you go.
This looks to be a zone play.
That's what I thought. So
okay, we got end zone. So I did not forward. Always play this version, the end zone copy, and this play is dead already because Seti's guy.
Right. That's what I figured.
He's got to get his.
Yeah.
And so this is just simply getting beat at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and sometimes your guards can leave too early. You want that's a hard block for a center, and it's a very hard block for a center. As a guard, you don't want to vacate him that. Now, if you're a guard, if you're linebacker, you're going to plays down here, tough nuts for the center. He's got to be on his own. He's got to get on his horse and go. You want to be able to help your center.
Gotcha. So this is going to be a little run from Dejan here. And, this looks like a zone, I think, but I could be 100% wrong. But it looks like the kind of the backside there.
Right.
For some reason, Darnell leaves and Broderick, this backside guy is unblocked.
Right.
But the right side collapses here off McClendon. And so I'm assuming this play was designed to go right off right tackle.
Yeah, it's a tight zone. Here's the zone.
I'm gonna let you watch it full speed, and it'll cut to the end zone camera here.
And I don't and see, I don't know why they have Darnell release. That doesn't make sense to me.
That's what I was wondering about
That doesn't make sense to me. I don't know if that's maybe they're trying. That's a weird call. You have to ask Mr. Monk. I wouldn't release that guy because you got people for the box. Releasing to that guy outside doesn't help because tight zone. You don't in a tight zone. To go stay downhill or cut back. So you want to hold as much as possible.
Right. Josh, can you back up these clips here?
Mm-hmm. There's which one do you want to go to?
This one right here. I mean, this is the very next play.
And that's a 7-man box.
Right.
That's a 7-man box. You need everybody. You need all the players. So let me.
You got Van Pran going up. Yeah, Van Pran's missing at the second level there.
And angles are very important in zone blocking. You have to know where the design, and that'll tell you where your defenders. You know what I mean? So if you got a tight zone, you'll heal. So you can't overshoot them. If you have a wide zone, because they're gonna run. So you need to run. If you play down, if you take they're gonna play over the top of you. They're gonna get there before you.
So is speaking about zone versus gap, is one of them, kind of more more susceptible to being blown up by these heavy boxes that Missouri was running than the other, or is it just an execution issue by Georgia?
Math. You know what I mean? They wanted Stetson to beat them. If you load up the box, sometimes you just have too many. That's versus zone or gap. There have been a few times in my playing days where we didn't have the numbers in the box to block the box, and we still kept it on. Had successful play. It just depends on. It just depends and where the back hits it. This was a good play by
Josh. Back up to 70 there. Yeah. So this is the first rushing attempt of the second half, and this is pretty obvious gap scheme. These guys pulling right to left.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking earlier about how you feel like Georgia has personnel that's better suited to gap scheme, but how normally there's kind of that identity, I guess, for a team. When you look at Georgia this year, they've kind of run almost 50-50 gap versus zone. Do you have any idea why you would do that?
I would with this group of guys, they got, I would be a gap team all day. All day.
Gotcha.
And judging from the way defenses are built now, like they're Jordan Day in today's defense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I want all guys all across that field. That just be what I would do. Like there's no Jeremiah Trotters coming down here smacking people. Nakobe Dean, 220 pounds, fast as lightning don't really help you when 350 pounds is coming at you. I mean, so I would chew these teams up. If you watch, you know, NFL football now, that's what the Detroit Lions is not equating to necessarily they're doing. They're getting 500 yards of offense, chewing guys up. You know, taking them big guys and just coming downhill on people, pulling guys.
Gotcha.
It's just Georgia's built for that.
So, I mean, yeah, I'm looking here. It looks like on the year they've run 71 zone plays and 67 gap plays. Obviously, I mean, we saw this rushing attack was really blown up for most of the first half. They go to more gap scheme in the second half. Things get better. You know, I think they had 15 carries for like 106 yards in the fourth quarter. That kind of carried the team. But Kirby was talking in his press conference about how, you know, early in the game, he literally said to the media, like, they were getting their asses whipped up front at the point of attack. Georgia's offensive line was, and he was like, we can do things to help them. And he referred to kind of going to more gap scheme to help the offensive line with that. So why would that be the case, I guess, is my question. Is it just if you're playing a defensive line that's more physically imposing, is it just easier to manage those bodies with this gap scheme stuff?
Trying to understand what you're asking.
I guess Kirby kind of made a comment basically that, you know, Missouri was dominating Georgia's guys at the point of attack on the offensive line in the first half. And so they switched to that gap scheme to help the offensive line, basically, was kind of how he phrased it. I guess, you know, my broader question is like, why would it be easier for them to block Missouri in gap instead of zone? You know, what would make that more simple for them?
They're built for a gap scheme.
Gotcha.
You know, they're not
just that athleticism
like that, and you have to know what to do, when to do it all the time. Like in Denver, we had about 5 plays. Variation of those 5 plays. We had inside zone left, inside zone left, wide zone right. It was either to the tight side or the open. Now and then we'll sprinkle in a trap, gap play. Every now and then we'll sprinkle in a pop. You know, that's what we were, and you have to be that at that. I don't think Georgia has the personnel to be a zone scheme. Pran maybe can do it. Brant Broderick might be that type of athlete. Us and all those guys, and Tate. I haven't enough, but I just don't see them as zone guys. And the concept, you have to know why you're doing certain things, and if it makes sense. As simple as it is, your angles have to be precise. And if your angles aren't precise, the thing about zone scheme, the margin for is kind of small. Because if you miss the backside, you can blow the front side up, and the back, you miss the side of the defense up, you can obliterate it. And if you miss that block backside 3 technique, play's dead. Play is dead. It's over with. And so it's, you know, the margin for error, if you don't get to the linebacker, it's dead. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Plus, you know, and you can impose your will. You know what I mean? Teams didn't like playing us because, first of all, we cut. We weren't trying to get our head across and stay up. We were trying to cut you down. And nobody likes playing. I don't know if that's how Georgia plays it. If you don't cut in the zone scheme, you have no business. You don't cut on tight zone. That's what you don't do. You don't cut on tight zone. But
Right.
you gotta cut. If you're not cutting backside, you're selling the concept short.
Well, you don't see
So,
Georgia's guys doing that. I mean, at least I
if you're
haven't
not
on tape.
cutting in the zone, it's not worth. It's not worth being in the zone. You know, and maybe I don't know the rules right now, but it's no. If you're not cutting backside plays, it's no reason to be in the zone unless it's tight zone. Then you want to.
Gotcha.
So George, I'm gonna put you on the spot because I don't know if you're watching Twitter during the games or not, or if you're watching the games. But it seemed, at least on my Twitter feed, a lot of people were getting on the offensive line on Saturday night, and kind of questioning a lot of decisions. And it sounds to me what you've described, if you're going to run zone, that it kind of can take a while to get in sync. You keep referring to it as a chorus line or like a ballet almost and stuff. Is that something that you just have to commit to, that you just have to kind of let these kids grow into it, and that this is a work in progress, and that you're not going to come out of fall camp running a perfect zone when you're replacing 2 and 3 guys on the offensive line, even if Tate was with the team in practice all last fall camp? What are you, number one, do you see them continuing to try to run this zone and it's just going to get better? And also, are you yelling at the TV like the rest of us about the O-line?
I wouldn't. I would gap team with a sprinkle of zone, maybe a sprinkle of tight zone. You have the guys that, we might not have the athletes to replace, and also that works. Just do what works.
Yeah.
They're
right.
clearly run a gap scheme. So why not? You got the guys. You got like no, and just pulling around. Like that's scary. Like you don't want that. You know what I mean? Just go. We should be a downhill running team. And what's unsaid about the zone scheme, you have the person teaching those backs, teaching the inside. Bobby Turner, BT. We put fullbacks back there. I blocked for 2 fullbacks that ran for 1,000 yards. Like they were fullbacks the year before. We put them back and running back, and they ran 1,000 yards. Dialed in. They knew where to cut, where to put their foot in the ground. Like it's all tied together. And if any part of it is out of hand, it's not gonna be successful. So the backs are a big part of not just the offensive line. I kind of get why you might want to be because of what Stetson can do with his legs rolling out and stuff. And running zone, like if you're a zone scheme ball until Stetson keeps it and goes and boots out, a regular boot, you know what I mean? It's play action looks a little different from gap scheme, so to speak,
right?
Because you're still pulling guys, and that's dangerous on a pass play. It's dangerous to pull. It's dangerous to pull guys on a pass play. Everybody has to be on their stuff, because moving, you know what I mean? Play action in the zone scheme probably easier. Easier to draw in the defense and stuff like that. So I get why you might want to be a zone scheme. 50-50, that's, in my opinion, I wouldn't be 50-50 with a sprinkle of the other. In Georgia's case, I would be be a gap team. Like for guys that don't, for teams that might not have to offensive line, guys, the teams that might be a little small, team, you 280 pounds, 70 pounds across the board to be a zone scheme and get it down pat, because you can be successful, be a gap team when you're trying to move these big bodies off the ball at 280 pounds. Georgia has 350 pound, 18-year-old building. They need to be a gap team.
Gotcha. All right, my last question for you. Is there one that is more considered like imposing your will as an offense onto a defense versus the other? Like, no.
Nope. Whatever you do,
gotcha.
Well, like I said, we didn't have a bunch of big guys offensive line in Denver. Tom Nalen used to put, on weigh-in day, because they want him to be a certain weight, be over a certain weight. They wanted him not to be under a certain weight. Matt Lepps is. I don't think he was. Tom Nalen was probably 270 something. Cooper Carlisle might have been 300. Dan Neal wasn't, like, it was guys, and so it worked out well. Guys, they knew who to block quick out of off the ball, and it just worked that way. Gap scheme, little trap every now and then to catch people off guard. So it's just what you do well. People didn't want to play us. Some defensive lines, especially, didn't want to play us in the Denver days. Want to run, and that gets you tired. Running, stretching, because you can't lose linemen. So I'm running this way. You got to run all the way to the. You got to run, and then on the backside, you got to worry about somebody at the knees. Guys used to back up. One racing as he did not want to penetrate versus those zones, because we were chopping back then. You know what I mean?
Right.
Legally.
Yeah. So
that's a different way of imposing your will.
Sure.
Like,
no, that makes sense.
With taking on those double teams every play, that can't be fun. Your will too. It's just a different way of skinning the cat, so to speak.
Gotcha. Well, George, thank you for your time and your perspective. No one I could think of that would be more qualified to talk about this subject than you. Any final thoughts or things that you've seen from Georgia on the offensive line that you feel like are relevant to the conversation before we let you go?
No, I think they could be fine, man. They've shown to be fine, to be a really good offensive line. Actually, they can't get discouraged by because some of those plays last Saturday, and so they're not going to look good on tape, but because of ability. You know what I mean? They can do. If they wanted to be a zone team, they probably could. It's just it takes a really cohesive, outside of the physical ability. You know what I mean? It's not,
Sure.
one guy of the five does the wrong thing, then it's the last thing I bring up one play. I always remember this play because I messed up. I had a guy on me, like a 5 or maybe a 4 or type 5, and I was supposed and stay on, and front side fullback was supposed to get back. Well, I took a step and I could step my D lineman, but I didn't stop. I just went right on up. I took the linebacker, the fullback took my guy, my down guy, and some yard touchdown on a completely bust block play because I stayed on my path. It's a zone.
Right.
I mean, as long as you block who's there, you can win. You know what I mean? And so, but I don't think I was able to do that because that's what we do in that offense. That's what we've been doing it for, a few years. So it worked. Even though I did, I tried my best to make up for it, and it worked in that instance. They're not there yet. Team, you don't do anything enough to get great at it.
Right.
Predominantly be a pound them out team and ride that to the natty bodies. You know what I mean? So they should be able to do that.
Fair enough. Awesome. Well, George, thank you for your time. If you guys have not checked out George on the 100 Sanford podcast, please go and do that. You can also follow him on Twitter. One of the more fun and popular Twitter follows in all of Georgia athletics. George Foster 72 on Twitter. Go check him out over there. George, thanks for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me, y'all. I love talking online. So anytime.
Oh man, if you get a game that fires you up, man, just hit us up. We'll cut it up for you,
Yeah.
and you can come talk anytime about that, man. We'd love to have you back. All right. With that,
Awesome.
appreciate it, guys.